Hello and welcome to our thought for the day. Now, Jesus has many names, and I'd like to think this morning about a particular name given to him by one of his friends, one of his disciples, one of his followers, a man called Peter. Now, Peter wasn't actually the most sensible person, and he often found himself getting into trouble. But Peter really did want to follow Jesus, and he did want to take seriously the things that Jesus had said. And so after Jesus had died, after he'd risen and he'd gone back up to heaven to be with his Father, Peter went around sharing Jesus' story, sharing how Jesus was the Son of God who'd been sent into the world in order to save it. Now, one of the ways that Peter describes Jesus is by saying that he's like a cornerstone. Now, I'm no builder, so I had to go away and I had to do some research about what a cornerstone is. And then I got a little bit of help from some helpers in the house, and together we made this sort of miniature model. Now, the cornerstone is this stone. You see, it's the stone at the very bottom of the building, and it comes around the corner like this. It's the first stone that gets placed in the building when it's being built. So it's a really important part of the structure. And if the cornerstone isn't placed just right, then the whole of the building will be crooked because all of the other stones are placed on top of that cornerstone. So if the cornerstone goes in wrong, or if the cornerstone isn't there at all, then the rest of the building is really weak and it can become really crooked. All the other stones are set in place in relation to that cornerstone. That's a really important thing to remember. So Peter describes Jesus as being the cornerstone, the most important stone in the entire building of our faith. So in the same way that all the other stones in this building are all supported by the cornerstone, our faith in God needs to be built on Jesus. Jesus needs to be for us our cornerstone. Now, another way to describe God is to say that God is like a rock or like a fortress, a place that is strong and a place that will protect us. Now, when we say that God is our rock, we're not saying that bad things won't happen to us. Sometimes life can be really hard, and many of us will know that from first-hand experience. And I'm sure that for many of us, the last year, 18 months, have seemed particularly hard. God never promises us a life without tough times, but God does promise to keep us strong through those difficult times, through being our rock, through being our cornerstone. And this is something else that Peter learned from Jesus. Now, one time when Jesus was teaching Peter and his friends and the rest of his disciples, he told them a story about a wise and foolish builder. And maybe you've heard this story before. Now, there were two builders. There was the wise builder who built his house upon the rock. And then there was the foolish builder who built his house upon the sand. Jesus said, "Anyone who listens to my teachings and who follows them is like the wise builder who builds his house upon the rock." Now, it might take longer to build. Building your house on the rock might be more difficult and it might be more challenging. But when difficult times come, when the rain comes in torrents and the flood waters rise and the wind is absolutely battering everything, it won't collapse. That house will stand firm. The house built upon the rock will stand strong, says Jesus. But Jesus says, anyone who hears my teachings but decides not to take any notice is like a foolish man who builds his house upon the sand. It might be easier to build at first, but when the rain and the floods come, it will collapse and it won't be able to stand. Now, Jesus is that solid rock. When we listen to him, when we follow his voice in our lives, we can know the peace and the safety even in the scariest moments of our life. Peter learnt that. He learnt it to be true. He went on to have many adventures and face some really difficult and challenging times in his life. But in trusting Jesus, he felt strong and he felt safe. So Peter kept on telling other people about Jesus. And he kept on showing Jesus to other people, how Jesus is the cornerstone, that most important stone that we can have in our lives, the cornerstone that keeps us safe, that keeps us strong in even the fiercest storms in our lives. So this morning, I hope that you can know Jesus as the cornerstone in your life, and I hope that his teachings can help you stay strong even through the most difficult challenges that you face. God bless and take care.